Minecraft 1.17 looks like it's going to be awesome. There's no doubt about it. Okay, we've got tons of interesting new features. I mean, the sculk sensor is something that I'm incredibly personally interested in, but obviously updated caves, the axolotls, the Warden dude who is incredibly terrifying. There are heaps of new features that I'm sure everyone is excited about, and I'm sure everyone has been testing in the latest snapshots, and I've been doing that myself. And while I've been doing that, I've kind of been keeping a mental register of things that I personally would like to see in the game that aren't currently in the game. Now, this definitely comes with a big disclaimer that I don't work for Mojang. I have no say in what gets added into Minecraft. I'm not affiliated with Mojang. They haven't asked for these suggestions, and if any of these suggestions do end up in the game, it's probably not because of me. Mojang are incredibly careful and considerate with the additions that they make to the game. They want to make sure that everything is perfectly balanced and everything knits together nicely, whereas I'm a bit of a moron, okay? And I like cool stuff because cool stuff is cool. Suggestion number 1. Toggleable sculk sensors. I've played around with the sculk sensors quite a bit, and I really like them. They're an interesting and unique redstone component, but one thing that I've found when building redstone contraptions with them is that once you place them, you kind of can't make any modifications to the redstone contraption without it activating. Now, I have a few suggestions for features that could make it easier to work around this problem. Suggestion number 1 is to directly power the sculk sensor, so it kind of works like a locking repeater. It stops taking inputs when it's being directly powered. Alternatively, you could right click on the sculk sensor and then it deactivates it for a certain length of time. It could be a minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. One slightly unique and very out there suggestion is that you could actually powder snow log the sculk sensor, because it would be difficult for the sculk sensor to detect vibrations when it's inside of snow. Or finally, you could have a splash potion of deafening, which stops the sculk sensors being able to detect noises. And of course, this doesn't just have to affect sculk sensors, it could affect players and mobs and entities as well. Suggestion number 2, movable powdered snow. I'm going to be honest, I got over the top excited when I discovered that you can actually dispense powdered snow, and then I got incredibly disappointed when I realized that you couldn't actually push it. You see, the idea of a block that you can dispense and then also retract back into the dispenser is interesting. We've never really seen that before in Minecraft, not the dispensing and also the retracting. And I just think it would be so incredibly useful to also be able to push it, so then you could dispense something, push it along a few blocks, and then retract it into another dispenser. Suggestion number 3, separate frequencies for mob and player sounds. Currently, the only thing that gives a sculk frequency of 1 is stepping, and the only thing that gives a sculk frequency of 2 is flapping. And that doesn't mean waving your arms around in an uncontrollable fashion. That relates only to birds and bats. I would love it if the step frequency was split into 2 separate categories. So a player step would give a power output of 1, but then a step from anything other than a player, so a creeper, a zombie, a cow, would give a redstone power output of 2. This would allow you to differentiate between players and other entities. Being able to place dripstone on top of hoppers and minecart rails. These new pointed dripstone blocks are incredibly good at killing things. The only issue is items can land on top of them, and it's a little bit difficult to be able to pick them up using hoppers and hopper minecarts. This is the only way that we can do it, and well, it's a little bit fiddly, because if you were to do it on a large scale, for example, for some kind of massive mob farm, you're going to end up with thousands upon thousands of hopper minecarts, and that's not going to do very well for the server that you're playing on. So it would be lovely if we could just place them on top of hoppers. Suggestion number 5, dispensers being able to interact with cauldrons. Cauldrons have had some pretty interesting new additions in the most recent snapshots, with the pointed dripstone being able to gradually fill up the cauldrons with whatever is above the pointed dripstone. So we now have renewable lava sources, and I would absolutely love it if dispensers with buckets of fluids on the inside could also interact with cauldrons. So then you could fill up cauldrons with those fluids, but most importantly, you could actually take fluids out of cauldrons, put them into buckets, and then store them elsewhere. Suggestion number 6, pointed dripstone should stick to dripstone blocks. Currently, pointed dripstone behaves exactly the same on dripstone blocks as it does on every single other block in Minecraft. If you move the block away from it, then it will drop down, landing on anything that's underneath it and causing damage, but also if you push down on it, then it just breaks it into an item. I personally would absolutely love it if this little fella stuck to this little fella. So if we push this thing down, the little spike would be moved downwards as well, and that could cause a small amount of damage to a player. So you could almost poke other players and entities and things, doing it either vertically downwards or of course vertically upwards. Suggestion number 7, dispensing of bundles. If you right click on a bundle that's in your hotbar, it will fire all of the items inside that bundle out onto the floor, and I would love it if a dispenser would also do this. This will allow for rapid dispensing of items. And in a similar vein to that, I think it would also be interesting if there was some way that we could automatically fill bundles. so without having to do it manually inside your inventory, but I'm not entirely sure how that looks just yet. Maybe if the only available space left in a container is a bundle, that could be a potential option. Being able to equip the spyglass. The spyglass is a very interesting addition to the game, and I absolutely love the new texture work they've done on the spyglass itself. This just feels incredibly Minecrafty. The only slight issue I have with it, and the reason that I probably won't use it too often, is because it takes up room in my hotbar, and I don't have a lot of room in my hotbar when playing survival Minecraft, so I would love it if I could equip it to my head. Instead of wearing a helmet, I could have a spyglass that I could then activate by pressing a key on my keyboard. Or another potential use for it would be I can use it in combination with a crossbow. That would be wild. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse shouldn't spawn on a lightning rod. I absolutely love this thing. I think it's a fantastic addition to the game. It makes total sense. But the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, they're going to get a little bit frustrating if you have one of these on top of your house. You know, every single thunderstorm, you just having to deal with those guys. So I guess in my opinion, there's 2 avenues that Mojang could go down on this one. The first one is to just stop the 4 horsemen from spawning if the lightning has struck a lightning rod. Or alternatively, you can make it so that the 4 horsemen actually drop some really good stuff when they're killed. So that it makes sense that you would want to fight them and you would want to have a lightning rod. You could even turn it into a farm. This next one is a bit of a stretch, okay, but you know waxed copper? Well, you know what it's waxed with, right? You combine copper with honey and that gives you the waxed copper so it doesn't age any further. Well, you know what the wax is made of? It's made of honey. And you know what else is made of honey? Honey blocks. And you know, honey blocks, they all stick to one another. I think you can see where I'm going here, and yes, once again, it is a stretch. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had a greater variety of sticky blocks? So all of these, they would stick to themselves, much like slime blocks and honey blocks already do, but they wouldn't stick to each other. So they could move independently from one another. For example, these waxed copper blocks, they wouldn't stick to the waxed, lightly weathered copper blocks, but they would stick to themselves. So if I put a piston behind this copper block, both the copper blocks would move together. I mean, that would be amazing. And also, can you imagine how cool gigantic robots made of copper would look? That would look fantastic. And I know that it very loosely makes sense. Like, it kind of doesn't make sense, but it just about makes sense. But then just look over here. Look, this piece of string, this tiny piece of string that isn't even lined up with this bamboo is stopping the bamboo from growing. So we can't really talk about things making sense here. I mean, look, the ability to find out sculk frequencies a lot more easily. As I'm sure most of you already know, sculk sensors give off different redstone outputs depending on the vibrations that they pick up. The only issue is that they're not really that easy to remember, and also just because of the nature of it, they're also not that intuitive to remember. Every time you want to know the sculk frequency of a specific action, you actually have to go to Google and you just have to look it up. So I suggest that instead of that, you right click on the sculk sensor and it will just come up with a little menu that shows you all the sculk frequencies. Now this has the added potential benefit that you could then also grey out some of the sculk frequencies that you don't want the sculk sensor to be picking up. Now if I'm honest, that does sound a little bit overpowered to me, but I definitely like the idea of a pop-up information menu. A quiet step potion or enchantment. This one's pretty self-explanatory, and once again it relates to sculk sensors, but this would allow you to have a potion or some form of enchantment that you put on your boots that allows you to go undetected by sculk sensors. They can't detect your vibrations. Now this would be useful for, of course, dodging other people's traps that they've laid out for you, but also for just working on redstone contraptions that involve sculk sensors. Tough pistons. These new amethyst geodes are surrounded by a new type of block which is known as tough, which is probably one of my favourite names for a block in Minecraft. And I think this just lends itself to being able to be crafted into stronger pistons, essentially. I mean, I've been asking for them for a very long time, but this seems like the perfect scenario. So regular pistons crafted with cobblestone, they have a push limit of 12 blocks. Tough pistons crafted with tough instead of the cobblestone have a piston push limit of, say, 24 blocks? Maybe even 48 blocks? I mean, the clue is in the name, they're tough. They should be able to push a tough amount of blocks. Non-stackable items and bundles. I definitely think you should be able to put more than one non-stackable item inside of a bundle, and I definitely think you should be able to put more than 16 of a 16 stackable item inside of a bundle. I understand this is sort of a break of the Minecraft physics, I get that, but then when you think that you can have a shulker box with 27 non-stackable items inside of your inventory, it kind of makes it alright, at least in my brain. Projectiles and powdered snow. In their current state, powdered snow has absolutely no effect on projectiles, so arrows can pass straight through completely unhindered, and fire charges can also just travel on through as if it's not even there. Now I'm going to completely ignore the fact that this seems a little bit illogical and then try and apply some logic to this illogicalness. I personally think it would be really cool if cold projectiles, things like arrows and tridents, could continue to pass through powdered snow, and then the hotter projectiles, things like fire charges and also fireballs from ghasts, then wouldn't be able to travel through powdered snow. Now this would make it very useful to have on you in the nether, because you could create almost a one-way wall between you and the nether mobs, so things like blaze and ghasts wouldn't be able to shoot you, but you'd be able to continue shooting them. As a side note, I definitely feel like blaze and other hot mobs from the nether should take damage from being inside of powdered snow immediately, because this guy seems to be alright with it. You know, he doesn't seem fussed at all. And finally, the only thing that is not related to new Minecraft 1.17 features, and this will definitely feature in every single video that I make like this until it gets introduced into the game. I mean, you know, it would be so nice to have movable chests, movable dispensers, movable droppers, hoppers, all that. It would be a beautiful day. You know, I think I'd shed a few tears of joy, to be honest with you. So there we go. That just about wraps things up for the things that I personally would love to see in Minecraft 1.17. Let me know down in the comment section if you have any suggestions for things that you personally would like to see, and also any developments on my ideas, because that's always interesting to read through. I just want to make it very clear, I am super, super excited for Minecraft 1.17. I genuinely love all of the new features. I don't think Mojang have done anything wrong with this update. It looks fantastic. This is just the extra special sauce that I thought of, that I personally would add into the game, potentially maybe, if I worked for Mojang. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya! And now I finally can reference the island that I've made this video on. You know, I always struggle with these sorts of videos, how to actually make it look good, because if I just do it in a regular Minecraft world, it looks a little bit lazy, and if I do it in a flat world, it looks incredibly boring. So I came up with the solution of having this little desert island. Let me know your thoughts about it. You know, do you like me building on the island? I personally quite like it.